Aloha. Good afternoon. This is Andrew Aloha live out of Tucson, Arizona with Spiritual Homes Productions on Webinar Jam, establishing and maintaining right relationships through human values. Aloha, and thank you for being here. And I want to thank you for being here, Joseph, Helen, and Jim. Appreciate your presence here now. I do want to let you introduce you to Paul Armitage, who will be talking between the lines, exploring soul purpose across lifetimes. In his presentation, he will be sharing insights realized through his 7-year journey of synchronicity and serendipity, sharing the true story of dozens of powerful experiences, strongly confirming his previous incarnation as a well-known European composer in the late 1800s. His story confirms how Dharma, or soul purpose, is fulfilled over successive lifetimes. Paul's journey as a healer through spontaneous musical performance and composition is the natural extension of Dharma carried over from the previous life. We have Paul all the way out of Canada. Aloha, Paul. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Andrew. Great to be here today.
Thank you for being here. And we're switching over the video, or the screen, to you so we can see you. But anyhow, you're now again. What city are you in right now?
I'm in the city of Regina in Saskatchewan. It's on the prairies in Western Canada. Yeah.
And so right now you're doing a tour, a music tour. Is that correct?
Yes. I'm in the middle of a number of concerts. I did an event last weekend in Edmonton, and I had a concert here in Regina the other night, and I've got 2 more over the next week. On my way back to the West Coast, back to Vancouver, where I live.
Got it. So, and how long is this tour going to last for?
Oh, just another week, and then I'll be home. So,
got it.
Yeah.
So I hope this comes through, because and I apologize to you guys, because this system is not the most stable system in the world, but I'm just working with it, and hopefully his picture will come up anyhow. So just out of, so earlier we were talking about your book, and I mean, I don't know, so you go ahead, from kind of just give us an introduction about who you are, where you're coming from, and then there you are, and then let us know, and then just go ahead and go into your subject matter, soul purpose across lifetimes.
Okay.
Just go ahead and go over that.
Yeah. I wrote my book Between the Lines. Finished this version of it. It's the first edition about almost 2 years ago now. It took me about 4 years to write altogether. The story covers the time when I first discovered this connection, this previous lifetime. It was first brought to my attention in the year 2000 by a woman I met at an event in California. She was a clairvoyant who approached me, and we made a connection, and over the next few weeks, after a number of conversations, this information was brought to me through her. And that was the beginning of the story. Over the next 7 years, there were dozens of incredible coincidences and synchronicities that happened every 2 or 3 months. There would be very powerful events that would show up in the form of, through my travels, I would just meet people, or I'd hear music on the radio. I heard a few times I heard compositions by the composer of the previous lifetime, who was the composer was a Norwegian composer, Edvard Grieg. Grieg was fairly well known in his lifetime, and some of his music he composed is to this day very, very popular and quite well known. And when I heard his music on the radio in that first year, it was 2 or 3 times I would just accidentally stumble onto a classical music radio station while I was driving in my car. And I would hear this piece of music playing. Initially I did not recognize the music because I was not aware of much of Grieg's music, but I was absolutely captivated, and I was really, really struck by this particular piece, which was rare for me. When I hear classical music, a lot of times I enjoy it, but it doesn't really move me in particular. But this music did. And then after listening to it for several minutes, when the piece would finish on the radio, an announcer would come on and say that was a piece by Edvard Grieg. And I would have this very strong rush of energy that would move through my body, a very strong feeling of a deep kind of inner recognition. So these are the kinds of experiences that were happening fairly often. So the book covers that time from 2000 until about the year 2008. And the first 3 years of the story, there was sort of a natural progression of very powerful connections and conversations with a variety of different people that ultimately culminated in sort of the climax of the first half of my story. About three and a half years into the story, the door opened for me to visit Edvard Grieg's home in Bergen, Norway, which is now a museum that is open to the public. It's been preserved in the original state that it was in the last 20 years that Edvard Grieg and his wife Nina lived in this home in the city of Bergen. And I was very fortunate in that through a connection with a woman from Oslo, Norway, who called me on the telephone about a month before, she ultimately became the link that opened the door for me to visit Bergen, to visit Edvard Grieg's home. And just days before we were scheduled to fly up to Bergen and visit the museum there, I was given permission to play Edvard Grieg's grand piano in his home, in the living room of his home. The piano that it's been there for over 100 years. It's been very well preserved and maintained. The home is a sort of a heritage site in Norway, and it's funded by the Norwegian government. And it's been preserved exactly the way it was in the last years that Edvard and Nina had lived there. So this was a very profound experience for me. The day that we went to visit Grieg's house and then I was given permission to play his piano was September 4th of 2005. And we found out just about a week after we had committed to going there, after we had bought our plane tickets, we found out a week later that September 4th was the anniversary of the day that Edvard Grieg passed away in 1907. So there was a very powerful synchronicity, what I call anniversary synchronicity, that happened. This was a very, I came to find out over the next few years after playing Grieg's piano, through connecting and meeting it with a number of people who had researched many other cases similar to mine, many other past life cases, that this kind of anniversary synchronicity was a very common phenomenon in many of these other cases. So I'm just giving you the highlights at this point. There was, like I say, there were dozens of powerful coincidences and synchronicities that happened along the way throughout the journey. It was this point of playing Grieg's piano that my dear friend, a man named Robbie Kordorf, Robbie is my sponsor in Denmark, and Robbie and I had become very good friends at this point. Robbie had invited me to return to Denmark a number of times over the previous 3 years to do concerts. And Robbie is also a gifted healer and a spiritual teacher, as well as a very accomplished musician himself. His wife plays the flute. She's a classical flute player. And Robbie had written a number of his own books on various topics as a spiritual teacher. And Robbie accompanied me on the day that I visited Edvard Grieg's home. He was there with me. And Robbie brought his video camera, and again, we were given permission just at the last minute for Robbie to videotape my 5-minute performance on Edvard Grieg's piano. One can visit from YouTube and actually watch the 5-minute clip of me playing Edvard Grieg's piano in his home. That clip was filmed in Robbie's home video camera. We were given permission at the last minute. It wasn't planned. None of this was planned ahead of time. It was all very spontaneous, the way it just sort of unfolded. And it was after this experience that Robbie says to me, "I feel strongly that you should write a book about this story, because it's just amazing." And I remember clearly when Robbie suggested that, saying, well, yeah, but I believe that this is probably true, the past life story, and I have no reason to doubt, serious doubts about the past life, but I actually don't remember any other. I have no tangible memories of that previous lifetime, so I had a little bit of hesitation initially, and I said to Robbie, I still don't know 100% for sure if I was actually Edvard Grieg. I believe it's probably true, but I don't know for sure. And Robbie says, don't worry about that. Just write the book. Just write the story and just talk about that as well. And so I said, okay. So a year later, when I returned to Denmark the following September, a year later, I decided to take 3 days and drive up, or rather fly up to Bergen by myself. And I spent the weekend up there, and I did research. I went back to visit Edvard Grieg's house. This was my second trip visiting Grieg's home and the museum there. I took dozens of pictures, and I wrote the whole story of the first half of his journey, part one. From the very beginning, when I was first told in 2000 by this clairvoyant I met in California. Her name was Diana Hallcroft. So the story begins there, leading up to this point where I played Grieg's piano. It took me 3 days to write. It was about, I don't know, 50 pages of material, and then I spent the next 8 or 9 months writing another 20 or 25 pages that came gradually over the next year as I researched and read biographies about Edvard Grieg, read published diaries that had many quotes from his own personal writings. Through this research, I realized gradually there was an amazing amount of similarity between me and Grieg on many levels. Oh, excuse me, the phone's ringing. Let me just turn that off.
That's Edvard Grieg calling you. There you go.
I'll just put the phone in the other room. 1 sec.
Hey, how rude. You can't just leave the stage like that. That's rude. How ridiculous.
So as I was saying, in this research into Grieg's life, I discovered a lot of parallels in terms of our temperament, personality, interests, philosophy, spiritual values, spiritual beliefs. There were a number of stories that I had read in these biographies that described key moments in Edvard Grieg's life and comments that he had made in expressing his own personal views. And many times I would laugh out loud when I would read his thoughts about various things that had happened to him in his life, because I had such an incredibly similar reaction or feeling about the same kinds of experiences in my life. And it was through that, researching into his life and reading his diaries, that I decided to add about 20 pages. And it was through that part of the writing of part one that the theme of Dharma, soul purpose, being carried over from the previous life to this life became very clear to me. That wasn't really obvious until I was actually writing the story. And it was then that it sort of just came to me, the title of the book. I decided to call it Between the Lines, because there was, in all of these synchronicities and incredibly powerful coincidences that kept happening, it struck me that there was no real hardcore proof in any one of these instances that absolutely, conclusively proved without a doubt that I was Edvard Grieg. But they all strongly pointed to that as a very likely possibility. So I decided to call it Between the Lines, because it sort of hints at it. And I think it was just the frequency and the repetitiveness of these many synchronicities that kept happening that really added to and strongly, like a momentum was kind of building gradually over those 3 years. So I decided to write the book. I call it Between the Lines, A Case for Reincarnation. And then a subtitle at the bottom half of the front page, it says, Exploring Soul Purpose Across Lifetimes. And one thing I realized in researching Edvard Grieg's life is that his goals as a composer, his primary focus in terms of his career as a composer, he connected to a very clear sense of direction about a year after he had graduated from studying 3 years of music at a university level in Leipzig, Germany. He was sent to Leipzig to study at the famous music conservatory it was one of the best schools in Europe. From the age 17 to 20, he spent 3 years there, where he got a lot of his training in harmony and composition. Grieg was a very talented and very natural musician from a young age. Since he was a child, he was making up melodies on the piano. It was through connecting with a well-known Norwegian violinist in Bergen, Norway. Grieg was born and raised in the city of Bergen, which is where he returned to in his later years as well. And when he was a child, his mother was a well-known piano teacher in the city of Bergen, and his mother was good friends with this famous violinist named Ole Bull. He was a Norwegian violinist. He was a virtuoso. And Ole Bull had come over to visit the Grieg's family one day, and he heard Edvard, young Edvard, who was only about 12 or 13 years old, playing this piece on the piano, and it was Ole Bull said he must go to Leipzig. And it was Ole Bull that arranged for Edvard Grieg to travel to Germany and study for 3 years. When Grieg graduated from the college, from the school in Leipzig, he settled in Copenhagen, Denmark, because Copenhagen was the biggest center in Denmark, in the Scandinavian countries, culturally, musically, artistically. That's where all the musicians and well-known composers and writers and artists were hanging out. And it was in that first year, after he graduated, he was about 20 years old, 21 years old, he befriended a fellow Norwegian, another young man named Richard Nordrak. Richard Nordrak was also a Norwegian expatriate living in Copenhagen, and they were both about the same age, and they became best friends. And during that first year, Edvard was quite depressed because he didn't have a clear sense of direction. He didn't have a sense of focus of where he should focus his creative energies as a composer. And it was through Nordrak that he was given the piece that helped him clarify his goals as a composer. And what Nordrak said to Edvard was, "You're Norwegian, write Norwegian music. Write music that will capture the soul of the Norwegian people. Give Norway a cultural voice." And so he said, yes, that's it. And so he made a very big commitment from that point on. His entire career following that was devoted to composing music that had a distinctly Norwegian character. Many of Edvard Grieg's compositions were borrowed from Norwegian peasant folk music, folk songs and folk music from people living in the country, in the mountains. And so he was a bridge between this sort of cultural backwoods of Norway and in the mountains and the fjords, but because he had the classical training and he had been exposed to the more cosmopolitan European tradition in music at the time in Germany. He was able to write music that was very well received and very very highly regarded throughout all of Europe, but it had a distinctly Norwegian flair and character to it. Now, in realizing this had been the big focus in terms of Grieg's goals creatively as an artist, as a musician, I realized that in some ways what I had chosen to do throughout my career as a composer in this lifetime, around 1993-94, after having been a professional musician, playing piano in restaurants, playing keyboards in many different rock bands and blues and jazz, I had about 10 years of a lot of variety of different styles. It was around 1993, though, that I was very strongly guided from within myself to step into doing my own original music for the purpose of healing. And I had already been on a spiritual path for a number of years, reading many books about how we can have a direct connection to our creative source. And as an artist, it became clear to me that it was through my music that I would best express that and best channel it, so to speak, and have a direct experience of that on a subjective level of that connection to the divine source. And so it was sort of it became very obvious to me. I was in my mid-30s at this time when I started to do music for spiritual groups, for meditation, for healing. And it was very shortly after that, when I first began, that a woman showed up at one of these evenings I was playing at in the early days and gave me a very strong message to step into creating original music for individuals that would help them to have a direct experience of their own soul essence. So this was where the beginning of what I call musical soul portraits came forth, and that really made a big connection. And so most of the music that I have done for the last 20 years is largely the foundation of that has been these original musical soul portraits. I also do musical portraits for groups as well. But what I realized as I was reading Edvard Grieg's biographies and reading about his life is that his goal as a composer in terms of creating original music that expressed the kind of soul identity of the national collective of the Norwegian people in some ways was quite similar. It was sort of a stepping stone to what I had been sort of strongly guided to do in this lifetime, in that, like Grieg, I was helping to create music for people that would help them to connect to their spiritual identity on a soul level. Grieg was helping to create music that helped the nation connect to its identity on a more collective level as a nation, as a culture. And so there is a sort of I realize there's kind of a continuity there. And what both Grieg and I have in common is that we had both committed to using our art to be a vehicle to express identity. Now, Grieg himself was also very spiritual and had a very deep faith and a very deep connection to the divine. But in the late 1800s, most people's conscious understanding in terms of their belief structures around God and around our relationship to the divine was largely through a religious sense. So Grieg, like most people in that time, in his attempt to understand and have a deeper experience of a connection to God, it was mostly through a more religious understanding and a religious beliefs. Grieg and his wife Nina had, from around age 30 or so, they had both become increasingly disillusioned with a lot of various Christian denominations because they both felt that they were too restrictive and there was too many rules, there was too much dogma. And Grieg, in his character and his personality, was very much had a very big desire to express his independence and to be free. And he was very outspoken in his writings. He wrote many, many letters. He wrote over 20,000 letters throughout his whole lifetime to many friends, and he was quite a public person. And in many of his writings, he often expressed very strong feelings about his view that the freedom of the human spirit was absolutely key. And he was very, very outspoken about that. And that eventually translated to him sort of rejecting many of these rigid sort of Christian theologies. And he and his wife eventually ended up becoming members of the Unitarian Fellowship in Copenhagen and also in Norway. And the Unitarian Fellowship to this day is still a very open-minded, very quite liberal, quite embracing. They're very they're very tolerant of many different points of view. So I wasn't surprised when I found out that Edvard and Nina, their spiritual life was largely connected to this group, the Unitarians, which is another interesting sideline. The first 3 concerts that I did in the first 3 years that I visited Denmark in 2002, 2003, 2004, I went there about once a year, twice a year, and I did concerts in the Unitarian Fellowship, the Unitarian Church in Copenhagen. Well, it was on my 3rd concert in 2005 that we found a brochure in the foyer at the front of this church that had a very a printed history, a fascinating story about Edvard Grieg and his wife Nina. The story was how after Grieg passed away in 1907, Nina, his wife, who had been Norwegian, had grown up in Norway, she was born in Norway but grew up in Denmark. Her family moved to Copenhagen when she was 8 years old. She grew up, most of her childhood was spent in Copenhagen. She grew up in Denmark. When she and Nina met in I think it was around 1863, they were both about 20 years old at the time, 1864, 1865, right in that period. In Copenhagen, they met, fell in love, got married. They were together for almost over 40 years. After Edvard passed away in 1907, he was 64 years old. Nina lived another 28 more years, and she returned to Copenhagen and lived the rest of her life in Denmark. And following Grieg's death, she joined the Unitarian Church in Copenhagen and gave many concerts singing Edvard Grieg's music in this same church. When we found this out, I was completely amazed because the previous 2 times that I had done concerts in this very same church, both times when I went into the church, again, in those first 2 years, I did not know. Firstly, I didn't know that Edvard Grieg had even lived in Copenhagen in the first 2 years. I did not know until in 2003 time that Nina had been a member of the church, but both times that I had gone into the church leading up to that, in the previous two visits, in 2003 and 2004. When I walked into the church, I remember vividly saying to Robbie as we went into the sanctuary, saying out loud, you know, this building feels so familiar to me. It feels like home. It feels so comfortable. I love this place. And when we found this brochure with all this history and the story about Nina's relationship to the church, the fact that she had sung many concerts performing Edvard Grieg's music in that very same room that I had previously done 2 concerts, this is an example of the kinds of amazing synchronicities that had happened many, many times in that first 3 years. So I just wanted to share a little bit here to give an overview of some of the highlights of that first 3 years and how this understanding gradually evolved through the process of writing the story about the successive lifetimes where Dharma or soul purpose is sort of naturally continued over into the following lifetime. That understanding and that awareness was deepened and really strongly confirmed in the second part of my story, which I haven't spoken of yet, through eventually meeting a number of other people. So part 2 of my story is connecting to a larger group of a number of other people, about 8 or 9 other people, through a man named Walter Semke. Walter is a medical doctor from San Francisco. Walter,
so now, before you get into your second part of your story, first of all, this confirms to me, which I've always considered to be true, is that, you know, people go around, well, this guy was, you know, people are born geniuses, and they aren't. They are developed into being and I would be curious to know if you were a composer, a musician, a piano player in other lifetimes prior to. I don't know if you've taken the time to check that, and if so, who they would be. And in the process, I believe that you know, again, geniuses, they aren't just born. They have lived other lifetimes doing the same trade, the same career or whatever in other lifetimes. Yes. And when they get here, they're already well versed in that trade or career or whatever. And so yeah, it seems like they're geniuses, but they had to go through a learning curve themselves prior to this lifetime before they came into this lifetime, and then all of a sudden Mozart is born and boom, he's a genius. But again, I'm sure of it, that he was a composer, a piano player, whatever, in other lifetimes, not just one other lifetime, but several other lifetimes, I'm sure, and before he got into this lifetime.
Yes, well, to answer your first question, initially when I was first brought to my awareness about Grieg, the woman that told me that also mentioned the name of another composer. There was 2 lifetimes, Grieg and this previous one, which is interesting because I had a strong intuition for many years that I had had 2 lifetimes as a composer. And the previous lifetime was as an Italian composer, and I think it was the early 1700s. I was never personally drawn to discovering more information about that other lifetime. Something inside of me just, I always had a little bit of resistance to it. I suspect it's because that was a difficult life. I think it was quite tragic in many ways. And I think that's partly why I've shied away from it. But yes, I believe there was another one, and this lady, Diana Hallcroft, confirmed that. To your larger point about Mozart and other composers, through Walter Semke, as I mentioned, I'll just speak for a moment about part 2. Over the next 3 years, I met a number of other people. Walter invited me and Eric Berglund. Eric was the reincarnation of Hans Christian Andersen. Eric was a harp player from Mount Shasta, California, and Eric and I had known each other for many years, and it was through Eric that I met Walter. And in 2008, Walter invited Eric and I both to come to Los Angeles and give a talk at a larger gathering, where Walter invited 7 other people. All of these were people he had written about in his 2 other books, documenting over 80 past life cases, very similar to me and Eric's. The similarity being that all the people he wrote about were all modern, living figures. Most of them were public figures. Most of them were well known in their own area. Some of them were spiritual teachers, some were actors in Hollywood, some were politicians. All of them had had a previous lifetime during the American Revolution. And the previous lifetime, every one of these cases, was documented in the historical record on some level, in history books. And Walter was able, through his research, to uncover the previous lifetimes and find photographs of the previous incarnations in each one of these cases. So in 2008, I was very fortunate to, Eric and I were both very fortunate to participate in this larger gathering where we each personally were introduced to and met and spent time with about 8 of these other people. And what all of us had in common, this was the most amazing thing at this 3-day event, and this is the last chapter of my book talking about this experience at this reincarnation meeting. When I arrived there Thursday, it was a 4-day event in Los Angeles. I got to meet a number of the people, and then the events began in earnest on the Friday night. And over the next 3 days, I heard 7 or 8 of these people give hour or 2-hour-long talks about their story. And what struck me as so amazing is that every single one of these people spoke mostly about Dharma. Dharma was the key word in every single presentation. Every single person that shared their story talked about Dharma, or soul purpose. And it kind of amazed me because I had called my book, the subtitle, Exploring Soul Purpose Across Lifetimes. Like all of these other people, we had all spontaneously, intuitively, over a gradual period of years, come to the realization that there was an amazing connection from the previous lifetime to the current one. And so really the theme of this meeting, even though it was advertised as a 3-day reincarnation event, it in fact was really more about Dharma and soul purpose. And all of these presenters spoke about their past lifetimes almost as an afterthought. It was almost like most of the people didn't really want to talk about their previous lifetime. They more wanted to talk about this awareness that you all had about the truth, the deeper truth of our soul as being who we really are. And then how that deeper, higher purpose of our soul as it's expressing in this particular lifetime. Once we become conscious of the fact that we are much more than we normally believe when we grow up in our families, or we're not taught all this. Most of the time we're not taught the spiritual reality until, we gradually stumble on it or come across it in later years in response to our inner yearning, our heart's calling to know more, or to try and have a deeper understanding of why we're here and what our purpose in this world really is all about. And this was definitely the case for me, and most of the people I have come to know and become very close friends with over the last 30 years. They're almost all spiritual warriors and spiritual seekers, and like myself, and we've all kind of helped each other gradually remember and discover and uncover and connect to this awareness of the higher purpose of our being and our truth, the truth of why we're here. So this was a very, very profound experience for me to see in person all of these amazing people. I was so blown away by their humility. All these people were all very much on their path. They were all doing really powerful healing work in their own way in this lifetime. Almost all of them, like me, what they were doing in this lifetime was a natural extension of what they had accomplished in the previous lifetime. Many of them, like me as well, they did not have actual memories of the previous lifetime. And many of them, like me also, they were open-minded to the possibility that they perhaps had been this person in the past life. They believed it was possible, but most of them were quite skeptical at first. And for a number of the people, it took many years for them before they finally let go of any doubts and then just said, it must be true, because there's no other explanation for all of these amazing coincidences. Like me, all of these other people, none of them were going out of their way to find out about their past lifetimes. The information was coming to them. This was very much the case for me. I was just showing up, and people would show up, and synchronicity happened. Events happened that really amazed me all along the way. So I realized that part 2 is also, in a way, orchestrated, I believe, from upstairs, that my higher spiritual guidance was assisting me all along, all through those 7 years, in guiding me to be in the right place at the right time. And I would follow that inner prompting to visit a certain place or go somewhere, or it was all part of my personal dharma of being a healer and a musician, and I was just following my heart. I was just following where my joy and my desire to express and experience life was taking me. And in allowing myself to truly follow my heart's desire and had these wonderful experiences traveling all over the world, playing music at many different gatherings and meeting wonderful people everywhere I went. Especially in Europe, Denmark and Norway, I was having these incredible, very powerful, strong confirmations about this previous incarnation showing up. So that, I suppose, is really the point that I wanted to share. Is I realized it wasn't just for me. Also, when I met Walter and all these other wonderful people, I realized that there's a collective kind of agreement, I believe, we've all made on some level to firstly discover the previous lifetime and then be open to meeting all these other people for the purposes of each of us validating and confirming each other's experience. And we all shared our experience in the first person. In other words, every one of these people that got up and shared their story, they're all talking about what actually happened. They're talking about their experience. This, to me, is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of our spirituality. I believe the most powerful example that we can ever express or teach about what is true spiritually comes mostly when we really speak from our direct experience. Because you can't argue with experience. Our experience is not debatable. Experience, what we've experienced, is the truth. As opposed to, many times many teachings are brought through that are more abstract. They're more theoretical. A lot of times people read a book, and it can be very helpful, and it can be very valuable information about higher dimensions or higher experience. But until we actually integrate that and experience it for ourselves, it's just mostly still a concept in the mind. So that was another great gift I received in meeting and connecting with this wonderful group of people. All of them were each living examples, walking their talk of this powerful, validating this powerful reality that we are souls having many, many lifetimes, and that higher purpose of our soul to evolve, to become more conscious, to become more aware of our divinity, is an evolution that unfolds over many lifetimes. So,
absolutely, and I was talking about that earlier, prior to when I was presented earlier. But and even you and I, we met in Mount Shasta years ago, and even though I wasn't directly part of that group, I'm still I still seem to be we still seem to be evolving and developing in the same way. I mean, even in my presentation prior to, I was talking about soul life purpose and working with people and people wanting to, or working with, helping people find that for themselves and so forth. So and you and I have recently connected. Well, we after the WESAC festival that we were a part of for a few years in a row back in the 90s. Then I guess we all went separate ways because Joshua David Stone passed away in 2005, and then the last one I attended was 2003, and then people just went their separate ways. But for several years, there was this soul group connecting there with you and me and several other musicians, several other speakers, and so forth. And, I've met lots and lots of people there, and then all of a sudden, it just kind of fell apart or just dissipated. And then now I've been working with this radio because again, I'm a radio show host, Spiritual Image Productions on Blog Talk Radio, and since I've been doing this, I've been reconnecting with some people, including yourself. And then it's like all of a sudden things are still in the same direction, but we have our own individualized message that we're putting out there for people as a collective, and a lot of the messages is the same, for sure.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, a lot of doors opened there in those early years, 2000, 2001, and 2. A lot of wonderful connections were made with some amazing people, and very fortunate. Yeah.
So now we just have to do a WESAC festival here in Phoenix, and then we're good to go. We can plug back in again. Why not?
Sure.
and that's one, and that is some of the stuff we can talk about further down the road. But again, for all of you, that are here, and thank you for being here. I appreciate that. We have, let me see, we have still with us Andrea, Felicity, and Helen. And if you guys want to go up on the top, there's a tab that says polls. If you would be, if you think you'd be interested in seeing Paul speak in person at a live event, go up there and vote for him. And also, well, one of the things that we're doing right now is we're offering, excuse me, well, the tickets are going to be $97 at the door, but right now for this webinar series alone, we are making a special. If you go up there, there's a tab that says pop-ins. If you go and click on that tab, on that button, that'll take you to the website page for the event, the live and in-person event that we're going to be doing in October. So if you want to go check that out, and if you're interested, if you think you're definitely going to be attending, then we're making these tickets available for the event for $47, just for you guys as a special. And so after that, they will be $77 for the early bird price, and then $97 at the door. So if you guys are interested in something like that. Now, Paul, you earlier we talked about you putting out a special. One of them is to do a 2-for-1 package deal with the latest book that you've come out with, and also the DVD or the CD. I don't know if you want to put them up there, show them
Sure.
this latest CD and also your latest book, and if they purchase one or the other, then they can have the other one for free. Is that correct?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be willing to. If they could go online, and if you would like to order my new CD, it's called Heaven on Earth, right here.
Now, if you go to the chat room, I put his link on there, his website link, paularmitagemusic.com. Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Yeah.
And that'll take you directly to his website, and you can order them from there. Again, if you order one or the other.
Yeah, my book is not available on my website, but if you send me an email, if you order the Heaven on Earth CD, you can order the CD on my website. So just send me an email saying you were on this webinar, and I will send you a copy of my book.
As well. As
part
of the package.
As for free. So, or buy the CD and get the book as well as a gift.
Nice, nice. And then also, I'm not sure if you want to make an offer because you did a soul portrait for me, a musical soul portrait for me that turned out pretty cool. I think I still have it on my website somewhere. But I don't know, how much do you regularly charge for those?
Oh, the regular price for a personal soul portrait, which is a 45-minute long piece of original music, usually it's $150. I'd be willing to do an offer discount for $100 for anyone here that would like one.
Okay. And again, just go to his website there, paularmitagemusic.com, and you can get it for take advantage of that offer.
To take advantage of this discount, it would be better just send me an email. You can send an email through my website. On the home page, there's a link to my email address.
Okay, and what's your email address?
It's museart@uniserve.com. Should I just type it in the?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
So he's going to put his email there in the chat room. In the meantime, again, if you want to, if you think you're interested, definitely in attending the in-person event in October in Scottsdale, Arizona, go up to the pop-ins. There's a tab that says pop-ins. Click on that. There's a button that'll take you directly to the page that lists all the stuff that we're going to be doing there. And also there's an add to cart button where you can take advantage of the ticket sales for $47 a piece, and you can buy as many as you want. It's not going to hurt my feelings, really. It's not. But so anyhow, so what now? What happens now, Paul? Where does all this go? What are you going to do with all this?
I'm being guided moment to moment. I just go where I'm guided each moment. My focus the last couple of years has been to just follow my heart and be in the present moment. And there's a number of long-term goals I have that are evolving as I speak. But I just have a strong sense that there's a it'll just become very clear to me. I'm very strong in this conviction that three quotes that I've lived my life by the last 15, 20 years, and I've experienced so much magic and serendipity. So many of the best things that happened came out of nowhere when I was least expecting it. And the three quotes are from Woody Allen, John Lennon, and Paul McCartney. Woody Allen once said, 80% of life is showing up. John Lennon said, life is what happens while you're making other plans. And Paul McCartney said, let it be.
Absolutely.
There will be an answer. So just show up, drop your plans, and let it be.
That's it.
And
state your intentions and just let it ride. That's it.
Yeah. And my desire is just to be in service, and through my music mostly, but I also would love to share more. Firstly, I've discovered a wonderful teaching that I've been working with for the last 4 months called The Way of Mastery. It's published by Shanti Christo Foundation. I've gotten so much out of it. It's Jesus. It channeled Jeshua. It's a wonderful book. It came out in 2004, I believe. And I found this immensely helpful and very powerful. So that's a big focus. I may step out into facilitating and using the Way of Mastery as a kind of a reference point for doing workshops or as a teaching tool as well. Using that in conjunction with the music. I have a feeling that will come soon in the next few months. I'd also like to. My wife and I are currently not able to be in the same place. She's in Australia, and so for the last year we've been working on manifesting the means by which I could be in Australia and make Perth my base, at least for the next couple of years. And so this is part of the plan that's gradually evolving here.
Hurry up and get there, because I want to visit Australia, and then I'll have somewhere to go visit. Cool, I like it.
Oh yeah, Australia's wonderful. It's been over a year since I was there, but Julie, my wife, will be here in the summer.
Oh, she will be good.
The
Yeah,
month
nice.
of August, and so that should be fun.
Nice. So now, what are you going to come back as another composer next lifetime, and you're going to be just like rock and roll, or what?
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm totally committed to the present moment, and that's all I know for now.
Exactly, I hear you, no doubt.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't know, is there anything else we have to talk about that you want to put out there? Go ahead.
I'll just type the name of this book that I've been working with.
Yeah, go ahead. You mean that you've been referring to in terms of writing your own book?
No, this is the spiritual book I've been working for the last 4 months. It's published by Shanti Christo. They have a website, Shanti Christo Foundation. You can Google that if you're interested in this book. It's really powerful.
Got it. Now, are you doing workshops now, or are you doing presentations now, other than webinars, and are you teaching privately now?
I'm not teaching really privately. I'm doing just my own personal concerts, as well as performing at the 4 times a year. I play at this big event that a group based in Vancouver, British Columbia, called Radiant Rose Academy. They do 4 big events a year, 3-day events. The last one was last weekend in Edmonton. The next one will be in August in Montreal, and then the last event of the year will be in Vancouver in November. And I've been connected to Radiant Rose for 20 years, and it's in between those bigger events, I do short concert tours, 3 or 4 concerts at a time, and then I'll take a month off. In between that, I catch up on writing or doing private musical soul portraits, working on a new CD, perhaps. I have a feeling that's coming soon, a new CD at some point in the next year.
Oh, yeah, nice.
So yeah. I'm having fun.
Well, I mean, that's it. If you can't have fun, then why bother? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
What was I going to ask earlier? I was going to ask you something earlier. Well, again, one of the things that we're doing here, one of the reasons I'm doing this webinar is because not only are we planning on doing a live version of this so people can meet with some of these people in person, but also so we can start doing workshops and classes and presentations and I don't know, special events here. And people don't have to leave their living room. You know, they can come out in their pajamas and just watch whatever webinars they want or presentations they want out of in their own living room or whatever. But so further down the road, we can talk about that to see about bringing you in and maybe doing some workshops or presentations where you can teach people how to do soul music portraits or whatever, you know, that type of thing, something like that. If you're interested in doing something like that.
Perhaps sometime next year that could work out.
Yeah.
Next spring.
And right. And I'm like you. I'm just going with the flow, and I'm just as everything is coming to me, and I'm just working with it as it progresses and develops, and just
sure.
whatever shows up just shows up, and I just go with it. So.
Yes.
So now, if you guys have any questions in the chat room, again, you can ask. You know, click on the chat tab up on the top, and you can ask questions. Other than that, we got about 9 minutes left. If there's anything else you want to put out there, I can see smoke coming out of your ears. Don't think too hard. Anyhow, I want to thank you, Paul, for coming here and sharing your story, sharing your book, and if you want to hear some of his CD, again, I'm a radio show host, and if you haven't already figured that out, if you go to spiritualmissproductions.com, you go to the middle of the page. On the top middle, there's a button that says SIP's Divine Events. That gives you an overview of all the shows, all the featured shows we're doing throughout the month. And then there's other, special events that we're doing are at the bottom. You can scroll down to the bottom, and that'll give you some stuff that, usually there's something going on. In fact, next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, I'm scheduled to go to Arkansas for the 2014 Transformation Conference. The Ozark Mountain does a conference every year where they actually publish several authors, and they bring them in, and they have them do presentations. So you can look that up on your own if you want. In the meantime, if you happen to decide to go attend that event, I will see you there. Otherwise, again, that's the place where you can check out a lot of the different stuff that we're going on, that we're doing throughout the month. And then then we got, of course, we got and if you go to that SIP's Divine Event link or page, at the bottom there's a link for the event that we're going to be doing in October in Scottsdale, all the stuff that's going on there, so you can check that out. And of course, if you go up to the the pop-ins tab up at the top, there's also a button there that will take you directly to that page as well. And again, if you're interested, you can purchase your tickets for $47 for this webinar. And by the way, again, if you go to the spiritualmissproductions.com, on the left-hand side, there's a radio show button. Click on that button. If you scroll down far enough, you will find the Golden Age Music Show for last month that Paul and I did, and you'll hear some of his music there. And again, we're talking with Paul about some of the stuff that he experienced, and then some of the stuff that inspired him to do the album Heaven on Earth. Is that Heaven on Earth? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, Heaven on Earth. So you'll get to hear some of the reasons that he did the album and so forth. Now, Joseph, let me see, where is the concert location? Now, what concert or location are you talking about, Joseph? I'm not sure. I'm not clear. We're doing. Joseph? Are you in Canada, or are you in the United States? Oh no, that's not a concert. That's also called the GPS Paranormal Golden Age Experience instead of the Hangout. So the Hangout is here in the webinar series, and then the experience is the in-person version of what we're doing right now. Some of these people are going to be going on to present there. I'm not sure. I don't have the list yet, but
I won't be able to make it to the one in October.
Paul won't be able to be there because he's got other commitments. But and I don't know how many people from this webinar series will be attending that, and who exactly will be. But it's basically it's going to be the same scenario, except we're going to have a costume party. We're going to have a psychic award ceremony. We're going to do a channel panel. We're going to go in a psychic show. And we have other stuff going on that we're looking to do for that whole event. There's going to be a psychic fair, vendors, and it's going to be much more in-person thing than of course than here. But so there's going to be a lot happening. So again, if you want to purchase your tickets for that, go to the poll, pop in a tab up there, and then click on the button, and that'll take you to the page. And on that page, you can purchase tickets for $47 for this webinar. So, all right, Paul, I want to thank you. Awesome, thank you for being here. And again, this is the first of its kind that we've done. This is the first webinar series for the GPS Paranormal Golden Age Hangout. And there will be others. There will be again, we're looking to do classes, we're doing workshops, all kinds of stuff here further down the road, and eventually turn it into a school. But right now we're just taking little steps and going from there. So thank all of you. Yeah. Anything else that you want to add, or is that are we good?
Oh no, we're good. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks to all you people that signed on and listened. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. Have a Goddess week. And again, hang on to that link, that email, that same link that you signed in for this session is going to be the same link you're going to be using for the rest of the sessions throughout the week. So have a Goddess week. We'll talk to you soon. Be the love that you are, always have been, and always will be. Aloha.
Take care.